Thank you very much. So please roll the video for the next panel. UN climate change.
Air pollution contributes to heart disease, strokes, lung cancer, and other respiratory diseases. It causes an estimated 7 million premature deaths every year, predominantly in low and middle-income countries. Air pollution also threatens the economy, food security, and the environment. As we recover from the coronavirus pandemic, the world needs to pay far greater attention to air pollution, which also increases the risks associated with COVID-19. We must also urgently address the deeper threat of climate change. Limiting global warming to 1.5 degrees will help reduce air pollution, death, and disease. This year's lockdowns have caused emissions to fall dramatically, providing a glimpse of cleaner air in many cities. But emissions are already rising again, in some places surpassing pre-COVID levels. We need dramatic and systemic change. Reinforced environmental standards, policies and laws that prevent emissions of air pollutants are needed more than ever. Countries also need to end subsidies to fossil fuels. And at international level, countries need to cooperate to help each other transition to clean technologies. I call on governments still providing finance for fossil fuel-related projects in developing countries to shift that support towards clean energy and sustainable transport. And I urge all countries to use post-COVID recovery packages to support the transition to healthy and sustainable jobs. Today, 7 September, marks the first International Day of Clean Air for Blue Skies. Let us work together to build a better future with clean air for all.
When 3M wanted to leave a lasting legacy to the local community in Maui after the completion of their incentive travel program, they asked Carlson Wagon Lee and partners to identify a suitable project. Carlson Wagon Lee and their destination partner PRA identified an agroforestry initiative whose mission to engage our community with regenerative natural farming practices matched 3M's mission. Over 350 3M volunteers were taken on 9 school buses to the Kauia farm located on undeveloped land on the island. After a traditional Hawaiian blessing, they got to work planting over 100 trees, including coconut and ulu, which bear the native breadfruit. Result, nearly 2,000 pounds of breadfruit will be distributed free to local community members and to school districts for lunch programs annually for decades to come. Bob Lowell, PRA National Sales Manager, stated, "Where else can you go and actually plant, then know that what you planted will benefit hundreds, if not thousands of people for decades to come?" Truly, this was a legacy event. Beyond the benefit to the environment and to the local community, this CSR initiative also brought a benefit to 3M, as described by Sarah Merritt, Strategic Planner. Our team came from all over the world. Though the trip was short, we wanted to leave a positive impact. This trip for us was about recognizing and celebrating the power of a team, and the community event was a perfect way to work collectively to make an impact and help others for years to come.
Pense em um sonho, daquele que você gostaria muito que se realizasse. Agora imagine se isso fosse possível hoje. E que o segredo para que esse sonho se realize seja pessoas. Pessoas empenhadas e unidas em torno de um propósito. Esse é o Grupo Águia, o mais diversificado e completo grupo de turismo do Brasil e também o mais apaixonado pelo que faz. Afinal, viajar, conhecer novas culturas e lugares é fazer acontecer dentro de nossos clientes a possibilidade de alcançar não só distâncias, mas os seus corações. Porque quando olhamos para o céu, vemos mais que possibilidades, vemos um universo de caminhos. Caminhos que às vezes escolhemos para ir ao encontro de grandes desafios. Como integrar paixão e excelência em uma só experiência. E juntos, vencer dificuldades e gerir competências para realizar melhor sonhos como este que você acabou de imaginar. Porque é olhando para os céus que sentimos vontade de voar cada vez mais alto, de começar e recomeçar sempre. Seja na sua cidade favorita ou em um novo lugar. Afinal, o desconhecido é para nós uma forma de energia, porque é nele que aprendemos e crescemos. Por isso, somos diversificados. É do ser humano ser assim. É humano ter coragem e garra. Conhecemos, incentivamos e valorizamos em cada uma das pessoas que trabalham conosco essa força, essa alegria, fortalecendo o nosso conceito de grupo, compartilhando ideias, conhecimentos e realizações. Para que o nosso maior sucesso seja alcançarmos o nosso maior propósito, a felicidade. Grupo Águia, dê asas aos seus sonhos.
Bom dia a todos novamente, aos que estão entrando agora. É um prazer muito grande ter vocês aqui conosco. Agradeço demais a presença de todos. O nosso próximo painel agora, o tema é mudanças climáticas, o que o turismo tem a ver com isso. Nós temos palestrantes de altíssimo nível conosco hoje. Vou apresentá-los para vocês, para que a gente possa começar, então, a conversar com eles. Sidney Alonso. Ele é o Senior Executive Investor and Entrepreneur focused on Latin America's travel industry and MICE organizations, strong interest on international partnership and business alliance, market representation, destination management service, and complex sales deals. Then we have Niklas Svensson. Niklas is the manager for the Global Climate Action Team in the United Nations Climate Change Secretariat. And he is responsible for the development and implementation of UN climate change work with non-party stakeholders to take action to help governments to reach the well below 2 degrees target set in the Paris Agreement. Niklas was previously working in the United Nations Environment Program, UNEP, where he was in charge of the climate neutral strategy of the United Nations system, as well as for the implementation of UNEP's program for sustainable buildings, urban development, and sustainable procurement. He also spent 10 years at UNEP's Regional Office for Asia and the Pacific in Bangkok, where he managed a range of different technical support programs. Benoit Sauvage, Sauvage, he is a DMC, CMP, and CIS, is the founder of CEO of Connect DMC, a leading destination management company in Dominican Republic and Mexico. Ben brings 25 years of experience in delivering high-end and complex service as a destination expert to worldwide clients and has passion for creativity, attention to the details, and sustainable practice. He's also the director in the site International Board of Directors, president of the site Florida and Caribbean in 2019. He has the EIC Sustainable Event Professional Certified, winner of Site Global Member Award of the Year, winner of the IMEX Green Award, International Speaker of Sustainability and Cultural Diversities. And then we have also Michael Gill. Michael Gill leads the sustainable regulation and policy advocacy with government, United Nations bodies, and business partners. Michael has over 20 years of experience and played a leadership role in the adoption of the International Agreement on Aviation and Climate Change in 2016. From 2007 to 2013, he served as a senior legal counsel in IATA. Before joining IATA in May 2007, Michael was an aviation lawyer in private practice at the Paris Bar, acting for airlines and their insurers. So, as I had mentioned before, and if you are coming now, good morning. Now this panel will be entirely in English, and you have the translation available for you in the bottom of your screen. So we have the great pleasure today of having very well-known and specialist people in climate change and sustainability related to tourism. It's a unique chance of listening to Michael Gill, Nicholas Vincent, Ben Sauvage, and today I have Sidney Alonso, a good friend, helping me to moderate this panel. So thank you so much for your presence, and I'm going to ask each one of them now to introduce themselves and talk a little bit about their jobs and their institutions and companies, and address to us how the climate change can interfere in tourism, and especially how tourism can contribute to slow the temperature of the planet. So please, Nicholas, I would like you to start, and thank you so much for being with us. Nicholas is in Bonn right now, and he will give his contribution for this panel this morning. Welcome, Nicholas, and thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much, Carla, and very nice to see all the colleagues and participants to this MAPS forum. First of all, thank you for having me here. It's really a pleasure to have the opportunity to share a little bit about the work that we are doing in the United Nations Climate Change Secretariat on tourism, on sustainability in general, and on climate change in particular. For those of you who are not really familiar with UNFCCC, United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, we are the part of the United Nations that is looking after the negotiations among the governments of the world, trying to find ways to cooperate around how we can together face the climate change crisis that we're all facing nowadays. Now, the United Nations, or UN Climate Change, basically have 197 governments, and would say the most important part that we have been able to achieve is the Paris Agreement adopted 5 years ago. It's really a blueprint for how governments should work together. But the implementation of this agreement requires more than governments. It really requires all hands on deck. So my job here at the UN Climate Secretariat is really to work together with a range of different sectors, from fashion to sports to energy to tourism, travel, of course, agriculture, cities, and so on, to try to support and engage more and more actors to take action within their areas of responsibilities. Because we all have a climate footprint, so we all also have responsibility to do something about that climate footprint. Now, I know that we're going to have a discussion. I don't want to sort of give my whole spiel here, but just to say very briefly that our work on climate is deeply rooted in the Sustainable Development Agenda. Of course, climate change is one of Sustainable Development Goals, and in the Paris Agreement, the prerogative of sustainable development is also reflected. So really, if we are going to be successful with our work to battle climate change, we also have to be successful with our work to promote sustainable development. You cannot take effective climate action if you're not also at the same time making sure that people are not poor, that they have access to healthcare, to fresh water, that the ecosystems of the world are working, and so on. And maybe because just you mentioned in the introduction, Carla, that I've been working for many years with the United Nations, and I think one of the most interesting experiences I had was when I was asked to coordinate the whole United Nations system's effort to become climate neutral itself. It was a decision that was taken at the very highest levels in UN, so we thought it was going to be easy. We found out that it was not so easy, and if you're going really to do something about climate change, you need to look on your buildings, how you travel, how you do your work, how you transport, how you buy things, what you eat, how you take care of your waste, and how you inform and engage other people. So all this together has actually taken us 10 years. Now, for the first time ever, the whole United Nations is actually climate neutral, and we're very happy for that. But it's not over. There's much, much more to do to also make it more sustainable and to keep the climate neutrality there. But I'll stop there and I'll hand back to Sidney, I guess. Thank you.
Thank you. Fantastic. Thank you very much. Thank you, Carla. Thank you, everybody, for having us here. And my take is on the, my take is on the impact that climate change has on the day-to-day business for us who operate on the incentive travel, on the basic travel industry that we live in, the ecosystem that we're part of. Today, what we see is that a lot of destinations around the globe feeling the impact of climate change, feeling the impact of unsustainable practices, develop long-term systemic problems. And we have to start from our end to educate travelers, to educate those who, in fact, decide the way they travel in order to create a different environment for the long-term travel. That's my take on sustainability industry, on the same times mind-blowing that you cannot sell a certain destination because that destination is on a curfew, like we have seen beaches in the Pacific here in the Brazilian Cerrado completely, burning, and all tourists seized. And you look at the long-term effect, it is terrible, and it shows that we are not doing everything we can, and we're not planning well in order to keep ourselves integrated with the environment that we're in. So as a member of SITE is the Society for Incentive Travel Excellence in South America, I do believe that our greatest motivation needs to be educate, educate, and educate. We have to be the educational forces that will drive the market, that will drive business people onto more sustainable practices on every level, from climate change to education, to keep the local populations aware of what travel is and what you are expecting, from using fair trade and local foods. It has such a broad perspective to it. But let's stick to the this introduction, as was said before. And I thank you very much. And I would like to transfer Michael Gill right now.
Sidney, thank you very much. Carla, good afternoon from Geneva. Good morning to you folks, and thanks again for the opportunity to be a part of this discussion. I represent IATA, which is the International Association for the Airline Industry. We represent about 290 or so international airlines. One thing I wanted to say to start with, and why I'm so happy to join this session, is that we have a tendency within aviation just to speak to other aviation people. And yes, we're always talking about the knock-on impacts that the aviation sector has elsewhere in the economy. But we often find it hard to speak the same language as those other stakeholders. And so being able to be part of this forum and discuss and engage with people who are obviously closely impacted by aviation, but are not within the sector itself is really important. IATA's role is to represent the airline industry, as I mentioned, but from an environmental perspective, and particularly on climate change, what that really means is coordinating with the world's airline industry on a sectoral, uniform, standard approach to how we're going to address our various environmental impacts. And we've done that over the last decade or so with a series of emissions reduction goals, reducing our impact on the environment, impact on climate change, and then a plan to try and put that in place. What we've then done is to take that standard approach and discuss it with the world's governments, and whether that's the governments meeting through the UNFCCC, where Nicholas and I have spent many hours at COP meetings over a coffee or stronger drinks, waiting for their updates on the negotiations, or national governments themselves. But we also have a very close relationship with aviation's international regulator, which is ICAO, the International Civil Aviation Organization. It was under ICAO that we managed to achieve consensus agreement from the world's governments on a specific approach to aviation and climate change. That's what IATA does. And let me just conclude my opening remarks on explaining why we do it. And it's really all about earning our fundamental license to operate. There was a huge focus a year, 9 months ago on aviation and the environment, aviation and climate change, with this whole movement from Northern Europe around flight shaming and fundamental questions being asked about whether or not people should choose to fly. That pressure has somewhat abated with the impact of the COVID crisis, but we don't think it's going to go away permanently. And we as an industry, I think, have recognized that we need to earn our fundamental license to operate, to bring the undoubted economic and social benefits to the world that we can perhaps discuss in a bit more detail, but we need to do that in a responsible way. And so why we've taken this global coordinated approach to our environmental impacts is because we want to earn that license to continue to operate, and that it really explains our overall approach to working on this, working through the world's airlines, but also working through the world's governments to try and find global solutions to what is the heart of a global issue and a global concern. So I'll pass now on to Benoit.
Thank you, Michael. Well, great panel and lots of really good information right here. My name is Sauvage. I'm wearing two hats today. I'm the CEO and founder of Connect DMC, which is a destination management company in the Dominican Republic and the Caribbean, let's say, and Mexico. And also I am the director for Latin America and the Caribbean for Site Global. So what I can say briefly, both association on the association side, being a director of site, and on a private sector, being the CEO of Connect DMC, sustainability is really at the center of our preoccupation and activities. We have joined the pledge for climate neutral now, Niklas and his team. So both entities have signed that pledge, and it's a very important pledge. I will not explain too much what it is about because Niklas is here and he's the expert. So I'll be the one giving you all the information. But I do encourage everybody, please reach out to the United Nations. We need to have a union on that, and you really can make a difference. We both Site and Connect DMC strongly believe that business cannot drive a society that fails. So we need to lead by example. We need to walk the talk, right? And as Gandhi said, you must be the change you want to see in the world. So on my Site side, I've been dedicating the last 3 years on educating, and I'm reaching out to Sidney here because he has a very clear point. I think that education is the base, and the United Nations gave us a great tool, which is the Sustainable Development Goals. And I know that the whole MAP seminar is around those, and it's very important. So you have to choose one that you relate to on your household or on your company and apply it. And then slow by slow, you'll see that you'll reach the 17 goals. So that's very, very important and very, very dear to our hearts in both institutions. And now on the private sector, as a company, what do? We help and we walk our clients through the whole process of measuring your impact, because before anything, you need to understand where you are, what you're doing good, what you're not doing good. So we walk through them the system on measuring and calculating and reporting everything that they've been doing the last years for their events or incentive programs or meetings. And then through that, we help them after engaging all stakeholders to reduce what could be reduced, and what could not be reduced, we offset them. Thank you to the CER system through the United Nations. So we're having a great impact where now we can guarantee carbon neutral events to all our clients. So that's where we are basically on both the association side and on the private sector side. I think I'll give it the mic back to Carla for now, and then we'll extend more on what we are individually doing.
Thank you so much, all of you. It was really relevant, all the information. Michael, it was really nice listening to what IATA has been doing towards the sustainability and to neutralize the carbon footprints. Niklas, it's wonderful to hear about what you have been doing with United Nations. Sidney, I really agree with Ben that you have such an influence in our industry, and education is really the key to march, to move towards sustainability and a responsible tourism. And I would like also to mention, as Ben has mentioned, that we have in MAP's site, we have a library where you're going to find available the two most updated documents that United Nations and UNFCCC have delivered about sustainability, tourism, and also COVID-19. So you can check in our website, in our library, and you will find both documents from United Nations. One is about the recycling plastic, because this is a very common question. Every time I'm in a live or talking to someone, the first question is, oh no, with COVID-19, now we cannot think about sustainability anymore because we will need to use plastic again. So please check on this document that we have in our library. And also today, our last panel, we're going to discuss about circular economy with many specialists in this area, and they will also give ideas and show the way to deal with the plastic if we do need to do so. Sidney, I will pass it to you so you can go with the questions now. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Carla. I have to say that it's a mind-blowing lineup that we have here. IATA, we have United Nations, and Ben with all the experience he has amassed over the years on incentive area. And it is, to me, a very broad question that I believe it has so many routes. But I would like to start by asking, and then each one of you can give your brief point of view on what do you think fundamentally tourism has to do with climate change? So either causing, either as I would say a vehicle for information, either the effects that climate change can place on tourism, but what would you see the main correlation between climate change and tourism? And I would like to start with Michael, who is the guy on the side of hope transport us around the world, okay, until we reach where we have to be. Michael, please.
Aviation, tourism, and climate change. The first point to remember is that according to the analysis that we've done, over 50%, actually getting close to 57% of the world's tourists arrive at their destination by air. So there's lots of other fun ways for people when they're thinking of their leisure time. Lots of fun ways for them to arrive at the destination, but a significant majority of people who do travel as tourists do so by air, and therefore there's a direct correlation. The impact that aviation has on climate change is also an impact that the tourism sector has on climate change. Just to give you an idea, the world's international aviation sector is responsible for just over 2% of man-made CO2 emissions. Now, I never say only 2% because I think that that underestimates the extent of the challenge. 2% is about the same carbon footprint as a country the size of Germany. So as an industry sector, we have a major role to play here, but we're also on a journey to reducing that impact on climate change. So, for example, if you were able to take a flight today, unfortunately for many of us, flying is a fairly distant memory of a few months back. But if you were able to fly today, the flight you would take would produce 50% less CO2 than the same flight would have emitted in 1990. So in a fairly short space of time, we've made huge steps forward, but that's not the end of it. And we as an industry have committed to a reduction of our CO2 emissions by 2050 to 50% of what they were in 2005. Now, again, you need to know the numbers to understand that that is no small undertaking. That means that by 2050, we've committed to be at around 325 million tons of CO2 from aviation airline operations. Today, pre-COVID, we were at about 950. So in the next 30 years, we need to reduce by around 600 million tons of CO2. That's a huge ambition, but it's one which the industry has committed to, and there are a number of programs, a number of strategies in place for us to get there. I'd be happy to talk through the detail of how that's happening, but it's all around new aircraft technology, new engine technology, the use of renewable sources of fuel like biofuels. It's around more rational operational methods from the airlines and better use of airspace. All that together is going to get us to this point in 2050, or we hope even beyond, to even greater emissions reductions. And as I said from the start, that's important because the impact that the reduction in our impact on climate change is going to be a reduction in the impact that the tourism sector has on climate change. Now, Sidney, just to let me finish, it's not just about what our impact on climate change is, it's how we can help in pushing the sustainability agenda, and aviation as a sector contributes to a number of the UN SDGs, obviously climate itself, SDG 13, but also SDGs like 4, access to good education, 8, access to decent work and economic growth. All of these areas are things which the aviation sector plays a significant role in promoting. But we have to do it in a responsible way. We have to do it in a sustainable way. It goes back to my original point at the start, that we're in a sector that has taken a responsible approach to this. We've made significant progress. We're on a journey to go even further, because we want to work hand in hand with the tourism sector, because as I mentioned, we're such a fundamental player in bringing tourists to their destination.
Fantastic. It's I think you guys have a humongous job on your hands. It's just, when you think about going from 900 million to 300 million, wow, that's we really hope that we find other sources of energy and fuel progresses in a way that engines also that can provide with this reduction. And I would say, moving to Nicholas, one of the things that got me a lot during the negotiations for the Paris climate document was the impact that climate change was having on small nations that live almost solely on tourism. You think about the Maldives, you think about Fiji, all those islands that will suffer more than many other places in the short term with the impact. What's your perspective when you think about the correlation of travel, tourism, and the climate change? How do you see that affecting the smaller nations, and how can we provide that they continue to create revenue, create a sustainable environment for their populations, and at the same time don't get such a severe impact in the near future?
Okay, unmuted. Good. So, well, thank you so much for that question. I think that's a really good place to start, because the way I see it is that tourism, yes, contributes to greenhouse gas emissions, and there's a lot of things that can be done there, as Michael said. But tourism is also one of the first victims of climate change, and certainly in small island nations, that some of which are actually literally disappearing beyond the sea levels, but are also hit by extreme weather events and by many other sources of impacts, are really, victims to this. But it's not only small island developing nations. I mean, in terms of forest fires that you see in Brazil or in the United States now that's going on, that really devastating. Not only the livelihoods of the people who are living there permanently, but also the tourist attractions in the area. And so we're talking of extreme weather, about heat waves, about extinction of species and ecosystems, and really destruction of tourism destinations. Also, a cultural tourist destination, megacities that are becoming almost unbearable to visit in the summer simply because it's too hot and you don't have the shade or the cooling that you need. But the good thing that I see of this is, of course, that because tourism is contributing to climate change, because it is victim of climate change, is also in a very, very good position to contribute to the solutions of climate change. First of all, because tourism fundamentally is helping people around the world to come together, literally and mentally also, so we can understand the conditions that we have in different parts of the planet, and that all of us are actually not that different. We can and we have to work together. If I can make a parallel to the COVID-19 pandemic that we have right now, dealing with climate change is no difference. We need to work together. This is not anything that anybody can do unilaterally. We have to work together. But tourism also, for me, I think is contributing to employment where it's needed, engagement, outreach, education, and other parts of the sustainable development agenda that is required to also be able to address the climate change, in a good way. The problem that I think we see today is that some versions of tourism, especially the mass tourism, that people really don't care to visit or understand, the destination they're going to, but where they are just going there, being at the beach for a couple of days, having a nice expensive hotel room, throwing your waste around and then going back. It's not sustainable. And I think maybe we'll come back to this a little bit later today, but I think that the silver lining of the COVID-19 cloud is that we really have now an opportunity to take a deep breath and think about how do we restart the tourism sector in a way that doesn't naturally, takes us back to the business as usual, but to a smarter and greener tourism sector. And I think there's a lot of things to do there. So to answer your original question, yes, tourism has everything to do with climate change as a contributor, as a victim, and as a very important part of the solution. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nicholas. And I like the word restart. And I think we're having a tremendous opportunity in our hands. We know it's, unfortunate. We know the reasons behind of everything that we're living today are beyond our control. But at the same time, as you said, we had a pause and now we can start over, maybe acting differently. And I would like to ask Ben about this, because Ben, we were in Vancouver during the make of the Vancouver Manifesto for Site. And we know that the Vancouver Manifesto is like a development of the Bangkok Manifesto of last year, when we nailed from 10 goals to 3 goals. So we're narrowing down. But at the same time, we were doing the manifesto and the epidemics was starting, and we actually didn't know exactly, the reactions to it. Now, looking at the impact that we are suffering at this point in time, can you tell us a bit about what the site board and what you guys are working on for the restart of our industry on 2021 and beyond?
Well, first I would go back to the roots before I can answer your question. There's a couple points and couple data that I would like to share with you guys. Well, first, there's 3 pillars in our industry for sustainability. The first one is people, the second is planet, the third one is profit. It's very important because we put people first. We put planet second because without people, there's no resources for us, but the resources are very limited in the planet. So it's a very important data. And then we put the profit. The profit is very important to incorporate because we need to show the CFOs of the companies and the CEOs that sustainability makes business sense and we can engage all stakeholders. If we don't do that, we won't go anywhere. Now, what is the impact, both positive and negative, of our industry? The travel and tourism industry is 10% of the world employment. It's also 10 to 11% of the world GDP. That means it's $1.6 trillion a year of a global industry. And Sidney, just the incentive industry within that is 75 billion globally. What does it tell us? We have a large impact. We have a very large impact, both negative and positive, but we have a voice. We do count. So yes, we have a negative impact, but we can turn that into a positive impact. You want to be part of the solution, not the problem. So what SITE is doing right now is just trying to embrace being part of the solution. We talked about education earlier, but there's also other things that we need to mention. We talked very clearly about traveling by plane. It's true that it has an impact. I mean, road travel also does have an impact, but there's other things. The food, the way we handle food, for example, in our industry is a huge impact, and it's very important through food donations, recycling, and feeding even animals. And so I think it's way more complex than just seeing the carbon impact that we can have. There's also a large impact, and we mentioned that earlier, towards community. So now we're seeing a trend that hopefully as a restart will grow now, where we try to look more towards a quality tourism versus a quantity tourism. For the last 50 years, I think the numbers were what matters. We just wanted more and more tourists. Now we're looking at sites such as Venice, Dubrovnik, Machu Picchu, that will reduce the amount of people they will accept within their premises every day. People might pay a little bit less, but won't you pay a little bit more? Won't you pay a little bit more to have a more exclusive, more designed to your needs experience? So I think this is what really we're looking at. And we also have a very large impact on communities through mass tourism first, but also through the impact that we can leave. And you talked earlier about Maldives, but I believe that any place you go, there are communities in need. And there's a huge trend that we could find through SITE, where 7 out of 10 incentive programs worldwide does have a CSR component now. So it shows that CEOs, it's dear to their hearts. It's important to the organizer and to the participants. They want to make a difference. And that's another very important data that we had to keep. What we're trying to do today, I think that we're helping an indigenous community of the Para state, and some of the proceeds of that seminar, of that forum, will go through those guys. So that's exactly what we're doing. We're just trying to help communities through a better impact. And we have an opportunity, I think, as an industry, to grow our audience and deliver exceptional experiences by making our events more welcoming, inclusive, and accessible. And that's exactly the mission that SITE is trying to take on right now.
Fantastic. I fully agree with you. I do think that we are doing a lot on that end. And I think, as I said in the beginning, education and talking to the business owners and talking to the decision makers in order to make the right choices will definitely take us a long way. And I understand, and Carla was discussing with me, that one of the main preoccupations and worries that a lot of people have today is that maybe the pandemics will have a negative impact on the short term by slowing a few of the activities that were being taken into reducing waste and other types of, climate changing measures. So I would like to actually go to Carla so she can broaden up a bit this view that has been crystallized, and then we can go to our panelists for that, Carla.
Okay. Yes, and exactly, Sidney, as I've mentioned to you before, and it's always the main question, like the first question that everyone comes to me when we are talking about tourism and sustainability is how the pandemic and how the COVID-19, with all the sanitary measures, may interfere in sustainability. So I totally agree with everyone here. I mean, the speeches were wonderful and very, very clarifying about the matter. And there are so many other ways to approach to sustainability and sanitary measures. I mean, there are lots of biodegradable biodegradable glasses, covers, and lots of options to not use plastic. There are also, you can have, when you have an event, when you have a trip, you can, from the beginning, build up your trip and your event, considering already ways of creating a very good impact in all the destinations that you are sending your passengers, you're organizing your trip. From the beginning, you can consider not leaving so many footprints in each destination. I mean, today and then at the end of the forum, we're going to show you the possibilities, but there are many different ways for tourists to contribute with the communities and destinations where we are at. I mean, it's just a matter of changing the modus operandi. We are in every place already. Tourism is a great tool. As we heard from all the specialists here today, tourism can impact positively and negatively with the climate change. And it's just a matter of us finding ways, and we are going to bring to you in this forum different options and different ways of having your trip or your event, creating very interesting, amazing experience for our clients, to our clients, and being sustainable at the same time. It's really a matter of changing our way of operating and of our way of looking into the world, into our activity, and always propose something throughout our activity and throughout tourism to change the way of working in each destination. And I mean, in this forum, we're gonna present many initiatives in Brazil and all over the world. Today, later on, in the first panel, in the last panel in the afternoon, we're gonna have like Katarina. She's from the head of sustainability in Gothenburg, which has been considered for 4 years the most sustainable city in the world. So she will give us, and she will tell us a little bit of her experience in Gothenburg, how to make Gothenburg, how much it took and how difficult it was, and what measures they used to make Gothenburg one of the most sustainable cities in the world. And in the other hand, we are gonna have a net in Brazil called Rede Tucum in the northeast of Brazil, small villages that the people has organized themselves working with CSR and receiving tourists and also students and professors from all over the world to understand how these small villages in the northeast of Brazil were able to organize themselves in a way that is contributing to the sustainability and also with a good impact and to the planet and to all the people living in these communities. So I really think there are lots of things for us to do.
For sure. Michael, I don't know exactly the number. I'm sure that you guys have a tremendous database behind of how many flights were grounded during the COVID period. I suspect it's a tremendous percentage of all long haul flights around the globe. So one of the questions that a lot of people ask me is, when the market comes back, or when the sanitary restrictions are lifted, does IATA and its members, are they thinking about rationalizing that in order for not going back to the same huge amounts that were being seen pre-COVID? Will COVID in a way contribute to go ahead?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. The drop in traffic has been it's not been spread across the globe, obviously, in a uniform way. Some regions have been harder hit than others, but I think at the height of most of the lockdown measures in March, April, traffic was down to anything like 80-85% of what it would normally be for that time of year. We've seen some improvement over the summer, but I think the industry is forecasting a very difficult winter season, and I think we may see the drop in traffic numbers back down to similar levels at the end of this year. So it's definitely a challenge. What I guess two things. The other forecast we've seen is probably that once there is a recovery and a rebound, we would get back to pre-COVID levels probably in around 2023 or more likely 2024. I think that shows you the scale of the drop in traffic that we've seen. From an emissions perspective, 2020 will probably be similar in level to the CO2 emissions from aviation in 2010. So it just shows you we've almost gone back at least 10 years, if not more, in our growth trajectory. The two things I wanted to say firstly, though, was as far as the airlines are concerned, it's not just growth for the sake of it. Growth has always been predicated from the industry on demand and connectivity, and those two things go hand in hand. There's a reason the industry has been growing. It's because there has been new markets, particularly in Asia Pacific and in Latin America, where there has been a demand for fast, efficient, safe environmentally sustainable air travel from the consumer. And so the growth has been largely to meet that demand. We as a sector don't just grow for the sake of it. We grow because we believe in providing that connectivity to, particularly to the world's economies, but particularly to developing economies. But we've always said that growth has to be done sustainably, and it takes me back to the commitments I mentioned that the industry has taken over a decade ago on behalf of the whole sector. So it's a hard question to answer as we sit here today. I mean, I don't think the objective will be let's get back to pre-COVID levels just for the sake of it. It will be let's get back to pre-COVID levels because there is a demand there, because there is again a recognition that aviation plays such a significant role in the world's economy, whether that's in travel and tourism or business travel. But let's do it in an environmentally sustainable way. Mentioning COVID, the challenge though is that much of what the sector was doing up until today to reduce its environmental impact, to reduce emissions, will require ongoing investment. And whether that's investment from the private sector, from the airlines themselves, or whether it's investment from government, that need is still going to be there. Today, that is a challenge. It will be a challenge in the coming years for airlines to be able to continue to invest in research and development in new aircraft and engine technology, investing in a new aircraft fleet, putting money into a sustainable alternative fuel project. That is going to be even more challenging, and it's where we think there is a big role for government to play as governments are trying to reboost the economy generally. We think investment in a sustainable future for aviation is somewhere where they should focus resources as we move there. Because as I said, it's not just rebuilding for the sake of it, it's rebuilding because we want to continue to provide the economic and social benefits to the world's economies that we've done till now. And we really want to do it, and we've committed to doing it in an environmentally sustainable way.
Fantastic. I do think that the airline industry is suffering probably the most, or together with some of other industries, a lot through this time. But and it's so capital intensive. So I understand when you say about the investment, because a lot of governments will really have to bail out and help in order to keep the industry moving, and it's pretty much a given fact to all of us. Nicholas, I've been receiving a lot of questions here, and I'm looking at the phone while I speak to you guys. A lot of people asking about education, and one of the things that one of the questions that came to me is, what tools do you guys consider to be effective in educating travelers, or what would you recommend that tourists would do? And one of the questions that always struck my mind is, what's the linkage between the UN climate area and the UN education programs that in fact could be working hand in hand in order to, at the same time, that governments apply policies and different policies on climate change, they also keep educating as a whole throughout the world their populations. So can you elaborate a bit on what can we find, or what is the literature or videos or anything that we can get and that we can spread out in order to educate travelers from the UN perspective?
Okay, yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. I think they're all very good questions. And it's actually quite funny, because if you go back to the convention of UN itself, of the UN Framework Convention, the text when it was established in 1992, it says that education, public awareness, public training, access to information, and participation in climate action is a fundamental component of the global response to climate change. We have the popular name for that is ACE, standing for Action for Climate Empowerment, and it is one of the standing negotiation items. So every country, every party to the UN climate change have committed to establish a focal point at the government level to support this kind of efforts on climate awareness about education and training and providing information. I would say that this is something that has accelerated more and more in the last couple of years, very much thanks to the voice of youth that has become more stronger, and that I think that is very welcome in our negotiations and in the wider context of climate action. Practically speaking, we do work together, first of all, with our sister UN organizations, UNESCO and others in promoting education, awareness, and training in general. But we're also working with our partners in the private sector, both with IATA and with the Airport Council International, which is also having a climate neutrality program, where they are not only trying to get the airports themselves climate neutral, but where they're also trying to educate the passengers. So the ultimate objective there is, of course, that every time you board an airplane, you will get exposed to information about climate action in the destination where you're going to. Having said that, that's so much more that we can do. When you go to any hotel today, I guess you are used to see this little sign saying that we are trying to save water for the environment, and we're not going to wash your bed sheets or your towels if you don't put them on the floor. We have all seen that, and that's a good small step that also makes a lot of financial sense. But the fact is if you think a little bit deeper about how the tourism industry can really contribute to the local tourism, not only but by going climate neutral, and Ben mentioned the Climate Neutral Now initiative, where we are promoting that everybody should at least know what the climate footprint is and try to reduce that as much as possible. And then if you want to go down to full climate neutrality, you can offset the remaining emissions. But there are also issues such as just trying to climate proof your destination, because I think that is really a selling point. It is going to be a selling point in the same way as a COVID-free destination is going to be a selling point in the future, a climate-friendly destination, and its tourism sector that is offering climate neutral experiences is going to be very, very attractive. So there's a lot of education that can be done, and it doesn't mean that you have to sit in a school room or a classroom and get educated. There are fun and interesting ways that you can do this. It actually brings me back to 20 years ago when I was working in Asia Pacific. We were working with UNWTO, the World Tourism Organization, helping to evaluate tourism destinations in Java, the main island of Indonesia. And this was I was very new working with tourism at that time, and I was here looking at tourism from the environmental perspective. And what I learned there is that if you go to a tourism destination and you see, here's a temple, take a photo, go to the gift shop and go back to the hotel, that is a very different experience from coming there. Here's a temple, here is a story, here is how we are contributing to the local community. You can be part of that. You want to be part of this is how you can do. And you come back with a much, much better feeling in that way. So I think there's a lot of things that can be done in this area also for promoting and educating and increasing awareness about the climate impact of the tourism that we actually all want to be part of.
You sound a lot like the big guys on the incentive industry. Congratulations.
Sorry, maybe that's good.
No, really. No, it is very nice. This is really what we are trying, the message that we're trying to convey to people, that you don't go to a destination just to, check it and okay, done, and take an Instagram photo and move on. What impact you're also going to put into it, an extract of the story. So it's, it is a great perspective that you have. And I think that all of us are sometimes a bit complacent on waiting for people to give us information instead of ourselves going in search for ways of contributing and educating yourselves and educating on yourself. So, and then you said something about, the destination being sustainable, and you spoke about Java. And Ben, one very interesting question that I got here is, how is it possible for us to think about sustainable travel incentives in a city like Las Vegas, or for example, in Orlando, in the future, or somewhere in those very mass tourism destinations that we have. So how are we looking at those destinations and seeing their future on the sustainable incentive travel arena?
I guess that is a question to me still, right? So, well, I think it maybe just a quick answer from my side, and I think.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay, good. So just very quickly, because I think maybe Ben or others would have views on this also. I think, yes, there are more or less challenging destinations, and I think Las Vegas is probably a more challenging destination. But nevertheless, I mean, the fact is that Las Vegas, although it's a completely artificial city built out in the desert, has a climate footprint, and that climate footprint can be reduced. And what cannot be reduced can be offset. Actually, I think that Las Vegas is one of the cities that would actually be able to go fully climate neutral on its own. Then you can have different views on how sustainable the whole business idea of a destination like Las Vegas is. And I'm happy to leave that to my fellow panelists to have views about that. But I would say that every travel destination can do something about the climate footprint. Every travel destination can invest their proceeds in sustainable development and in the local community, and that should happen. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. Ben?
Sure. Well, I think that everything comes down to education, everything we've been talking about, and you have different level of educations. We are more of ground handlers on destination in development. So it's way different than Las Vegas. To be honest with you, my perspective would be it's easier to have Las Vegas as a carbon neutral city than to have one of the beach destinations in the Caribbean that don't always have the resources for that, or where the governments don't always see the needs for that. So what do we do as ground handlers? We set up the bed for education. So we started, I think, 17 years ago with an incentive program from New York, where we rebuilt a school that was completely devastated by a hurricane. And we created a learning and a communication and a community center where, and it was funny to see because there was that old man of 87 years old. Sorry for you, Sidney, because you're almost there. There was that old man of 87 years old that never traveled further than where his donkey could bring him. And out of a sudden, he had access to internet and he could discover the world. So he was sitting there with the young kids and he was taking classes and discovering a whole new world around him that he would not have had access if it wasn't for that client and our resources that we put. So I believe that everything in the end always comes down to education at different tiers and different levels. But the community is very important to educate, because if you come in my house, you follow my rules. If I don't have my rules clear and set up, how can I ask you to do better for my environment, to reduce my overall impact and footprint? So I think that we both have to educate the travelers. We have to educate and empower the governments, and the governments have to empower themselves to make sure that they are giving the best tools to their society to succeed. But also everybody, that it's a DMO, that it's a DMC, that it's a CVB, that it's an hotelier, we have to work with our communities and educate our communities. If the young kids in the street don't understand that a bottle of water that they throw on the side of the road can stay there for maybe thousands or hundreds of years, well, they'll just keep on doing it. So I think that it's our responsibility as inbound tourism actors to educate the community. And it's the responsibility of the outbound, the travel airlines, the hoteliers, everybody that do their promotion on the starting country to educate the travelers. And then definitively we will have great results.
Fantastic. I totally agree. And
Me coloca que eu assumo. Okay, so Sidney, for some reason, is a little bit disconnected, so I will go on from here. We have more 15 minutes to go, and I would like to listen to you guys very briefly, your final considerations about what has been discussed here. And I see that education is a key point to everyone. And this is also the main reason, I would say, of this forum, is to spread the word of sustainability and responsible tourism. And also, I would like to mention to all our audience that we're going to send to you guys later on today the link for participation in the SDG Action Zone organized by United Nations. So you're going to receive this link today. It's open to everyone all over the world, and we are going to send to you, to everyone who has, who is participating, who is attending the forum. We're going to send today the link so you can also participate in this event organized by United Nations, speaking about the Sustainable Development Goals. It's going to happen on September 22nd, 23rd, and 24th. So 3 days with a full agenda discussing how we can help and how we can change the world and our activity in the direction that we are desiring and we are looking for. So I asked Michael, Nicholas, Ben, and Sidney to briefly give your final considerations, and then we are done. Thank you. Michael, would you please start?
Sure, Cara, thanks, happy to. And again, really pleased to have been invited to join this panel. It's been a very rich discussion, and as I said, from me as an aviation person, a much broader perspective. What I'd like to conclude by remarking is again the fact, as everyone knows, don't need to highlight it, but to know again, we're in the midst of this awful pandemic, which has impacted everybody's lives. It's people have lost their lives, people have lost their livelihoods, and it's certainly from an aviation industry perspective has highlighted the significant role that we play in connecting everybody, whether it's connecting families, friends, whether it's connecting people to educational opportunities, whether it's business opportunities, or whether it's this fundamental desire that we all have to travel, to visit, to exchange, to learn from other cultures through tourism. The world that we're in today does feel a lot smaller than it did perhaps just a year ago, and the impact of COVID, to my mind, has really underlined the role that aviation plays in all of that. But it also has no doubt highlighted the environmentalist aspect of it all, because I'm sure all of us have had comments that in the midst of the COVID lockdown, the skies seemed cleaner. There was no aircraft noise. The pollution in many of our bigger cities seemed to have dropped, and so I think coming out of all of this, there is, to my mind, that fundamental balancing act, which is aviation has a significant, huge role to play in tourism and the economy generally, but it has an environmental impact that we need to address. And so, if we can do anything, it's to try and explain as a sector what we're doing. What the significant progress we've made, but it's not just about education. I mean, we can talk about it, we can explain it to people. What we really need is to have government support for people within the aviation sector to actually do this, to actually build the new aircraft, to actually produce the new fuels, to actually operate aircraft in a more effective and efficient way, because that's how we'll make real life change on our environmental impact in the years to come. So it is important that we educate. It is important that everybody is aware, but it's also just as important that we push collectively our governments, our international institutions to support us in making those real life changes.
Thank you so much, Michael. Thank you very, very much. And having your presence here as the responsible for sustainability at IATA and speaking for the aviation all over the world was really a great and unique opportunity. I know that you had a very busy schedule today, and I really appreciate it. And I thank you in the name of all the audience, all the other speakers, and in the name of everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's a real pleasure. Thank you.
Nicholas, would you like to please tell us your final considerations?
Yes, thank you so much. And I actually would echo a lot of what Michael said. I think indeed we are in unique and very, very difficult times right now. But it's also these difficult times, there is a silver lining to the COVID cloud, and it gives us pause, it gives us opportunity to really take a deep breath and think about what have we been doing so far and what direction are traveling in, and can we make a course correction. In particular, I think something that we are doing in UNFCCC is that all governments are required to develop their climate action plans. We call them naturally determined contributions, NDCs, but it's really climate action plans that describing what the governments are going to do to address the climate footprint. And now with the COVID pandemic, it's also very clear that these action plans have to be combined with a green recovery plan. And I think there is a unique opportunity really for the tourism sector, I mean, for many other sectors as well, but for the tourist sector to identify what are the opportunities to build back in a better way, to restart things in a better way that is not only benefiting the immediate needs that the tourism sector is meeting in terms of income and building livelihoods and so on, but also helps the country to prepare for climate change. Because once we're done with the COVID-19 pandemic, the climate change is still coming, and we need to be prepared for that. And this is the right time to get prepared for that. So without in any way, denying the very difficult and tough times that we're all facing, I still dare to be a little bit of an optimist, because I see an opportunity hidden in this pandemic and situation we have now. And I have a lot of trust in the tourism sector. We have seen the tourism sector going through many different challenges over the year, and it tends to come back stronger and better. And I'm sure we're going to see that now again. So from our side in United Nations Climate Change, we are keen to support this in any way we can. We already have partnerships with organizations such as IATA or Airport Council International or World Tourism Travel Council, and we're always open for finding new ways of working together. So thank you again for having us here and for having this opportunity to listen and to share our thoughts. Thank you.
I really thank you, and it was really great to have you as a representative of United Nations CCC addressing to everyone and giving this whole perspective of how we are impacting negatively, and also how we can start to impact positively. Thank you so much, Nicholas. It was really a great pleasure having you with us. Ben,
likewise, thank you.
Would you go ahead with your final considerations, please?
Well, I will totally echo and relay what Michael and Nicholas have said. I think that the planet is sending us very clear messages, not only COVID, but there's many things happening that are very, very clear messages out there. And I think that, yeah, definitively the travel and tourism industry, it's time for a reset. Rethink better, replan and reduce, repurpose, and do what we have to do in order to have a more sustainable industry. I will also like to add that face-to-face meetings, traveling, taking a plane, booking a hotel will never die. You don't have the same relation with people when you meet them face-to-face and when you do virtual meeting. But there's another aspect that very few people consider, and it's very interesting because I'm working with Nicholas' team on redacting a calculation chart for virtual meeting. And it will be very interesting to see the impact that our virtual meeting have, because we know that empowers a lot all the servers around the world. So now, just to close the session, first I would thank all the speakers on the panel. I think it was great conversation, and I'm very happy and proud to have taken part of that. But I would just say that every action towards sustainability is a positive action. And I always say, if you want to clean up the world, start by your own house.
Yes, great message, Benoit. Thank you so much. And now I would like to listen to Sidney's final considerations. please.
Thank you, Carla. Thank you, guys. It's been a pleasure. It's been very educational to me. And I think that me not being a specialist on sustainability, it's like a lesson. It's like being in a class with all of you guys. So I'm very thankful for being part. And my final consideration is I'm a father of twins. They're 12. And I want them to be able to travel. I want them to be able to see the world. I want them to be able to be proud of looking at things from different perspectives and learning and understanding the world is diverse, the world is vibrant, and a lot of people in different places, no matter how poor or how well, they are embracing the same philosophy of life. So it is to me important to see that governments, that organizations, that bodies, entities of greater economic power are looking at these things, because how can we deliver to these kids a positive message or a positive outlook for traveling in the future if we are not passing on this information? So it is to me motivational. It is important, and I do think that the forum, Carla, meets a lot of these needs for information, for positivity, and also to look for ways out of a situation that we put ourselves. Let's face it, human beings, we put ourselves in where we are today, and now we were so brilliant to get to here. Now let's be brilliant to get out of here somewhere, some way. And this is how I look at it. So I think incentive travel, I think all of us governments have our responsibility. And I would leave with that we have to be ready. We have to roll up our sleeves and do whatever is needed. Thank you so much to all of you guys. Thank you so much.
Sidney, great speech, and I totally agree with you. I mean, we were so brilliant to get here. Now, I'm quite sure that we can be also brilliant again to go from here to a different pattern of work, of relationship with the planet and all the human beings and all the human livings, because we have the power to do it. And we are going to have the chance in the next panels. We have 2 more panels in this afternoon today, and then tomorrow we have again 2 panels in the morning and 2 panels in the afternoon, showing and offering different perspectives and different ways of doing tourism and events, and also taking care of our only home. So thank you so much to all again. It was really, really an honor to have all you here with us. I'm very touched, and I've been very touched all the way throughout the organization of this forum with the support and all the attention, availability, and support from everyone, especially from you guys. So really, thank you so much. And I'm quite sure that we're going to, next year when we have the next forum, hopefully we're going to be talking about the solutions and about the creativity and all the other options that tourism can bring and contribute with our world in harmony. Thank you all so much. Thank you, Ben. Thank you, Nicholas. Thank you, Michael. And thank you so much, my friend Sidney. It was really nice having you guys here. Okay, thank you. Agora em português, eu agradeço demais.
I'd like to thank you all very much for being here. And as we're doing, at the end of each panel, we will show on screen how much we spent to organize the forum, how much we still need to reach the total costs. These costs are on an open spreadsheet if you want to see them line by line, so you can understand where this money is being spent, how much money came in, how much money will be spent, and where. In the meantime, between the first and the second panel, we received some donations helping to supplement the money invested, and the people who are working as volunteers, and the part we will donate to the Xikrin community in the Amazon. So thank you very much. I think these panels were very illustrative. I hope we are being able to raise awareness in everyone who's here participating. We had 400 people enrolled. It is a very large number. And our goal is, with everything that you will see in this forum, so that each and every one of you can be a transformation element. I think the largest, but most we can win through this forum, and you can see it on the spreadsheet with costs that we've shown you. Everyone who's here today talking, producing, has a greater goal, which is to be able to spread this movement, multiply it not only in tourism but in all activities. But now we're thinking specifically in our tourism market and events market, so that each and every one of us can be the bearer of this message, that we can show through our actions, through our choices, whether when we're choosing suppliers, destinations, the program that will be offered for passengers, for clients, so that we will offer sustainable options. We need to follow this direction. Tourism cannot be left behind. This is the responsibility of every one of us. We see you back here at 3:30 in the afternoon. We will have two very interesting panels. We will hear about the alternatives on what we can do in terms of tourism and sustainability. And in the last panel today, we will understand a little bit more about what is circular economy, how we can apply the circular economy, and why are we discussing circular economy so much